Hello and a very warm welcome to ET Studios. I'm Hemanshi Tewari and we are joining you from the ETCISO Annual Conclave 2024 from this beautiful city of Vizag. Now for this session, the session is actually powered by Microsoft, and for this session we're going to discuss about something that lies at the heart of every organization, digital strategy. For this, to talk about this and much more, we are joined in by Anand Jethalia, Country Head Cybersecurity, Microsoft India and South
Absolutely.
Asia.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
All right. We are also joined in by Pushkal Mishra, CISO, Dr. Lal Path Labs, and Tanin Global DPO at Biocon Biologics. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you all here on this show. And right now we're going to discuss about data security. So if you can share your thoughts, maybe I'll start with you, Anand, about an end-to-end approach to digital security. So what are your thoughts on that and how do you look at it?
Sure. See, if you look at just in last 2 years, right, these cyber threats have gone up by almost by 10x, right? Let me explain it by a couple of examples. You look at today the median time for an attacker to get access to your personal data once you get phished is just about 72 minutes. This used to be days and weeks earlier, right? And also the password attacks per month. This has moved from 3 billion to about 30 billion in just about 2 years. That's the scale of, you can say, cyber attacks that we are seeing. And if this was not daunting enough, on the other side, we are seeing that customers today are using almost 80 plus kind of tools to secure that their data estate. Plus, there is a growing need for everyday updating your regulatory regulations and compliance, right? And of course, when you are surrounded by a high shortage of skill power, all that becomes you can say a very interesting or you can say scary space, and that's where companies are working to consolidate their infrastructure.
All right, thank you. And even for this, I would like to come to you, Pushkal, as well. You are the CISO. You're also taking care of privacy. But same question, end to end when it comes to data security, and also, how organizations are thinking about their data estate or digital estate as a whole.
Absolutely. So when we talk about digital data state as a whole and also data strategy for an organization, we look at data security and data privacy in tandem. And this all starts from really identifying what is most critical for the business data wise. Now, all the data that organizations are generating not actually important. It is really starting from the point where what is most important for me. And that's what I try to classify first and foremost. That's give me a direction. Where do I want to basically put my data security and privacy across my data state? So classification is one of the most fundamental steps. Once I do that, I know what is confidential and restricted and what is really needed to be taken care of. And that's when whole lot of data privacy controls comes in, whole data strategy, which is defense in depth, comes in, and the data privacy controls in terms of your data minimization, whether I should take a consent, what is my legitimate purpose for processing the data that comes in. So yeah, I mean, it's really a combination of multiple things.
All right, thank you for that insight. Now I'm coming to you, Tanin. Data encryption and protection mechanisms have become standard practice across. But what are those some overlooked areas, when it comes to securing data at rest and also in transit?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Hemanshi. I'll just go one step back. What Pushkar was referring to about data collection and data understanding, classification of data into PI and non-PI data. And from there on, you put across your encryption part to it. Now, first, bare minimum you need to ask yourself while collecting the data is, do you really need that data? So there is one of the basic and the cheapest encryption, I would call in that way, is not collecting the data which you're not processing it. So in that way, you are minimizing the risk of collecting the data and the data set that you are already having it. Now, to having that, and then you are already ticking box one of the principles of data minimization of GDPR, all talk about DPDP. And then after you are collecting the data points which are really required for you to process the data to give some services. So you build encryption to it, and you need to understand what kind of encryption you like to do it. Either you do an encryption at the rest or at the transit. Now, doing all that and understanding the value of the data that you are collecting and the services that you're going to provide to your customers or your clients, you got to build your encryption part to it. And to do that, you either need to onboard a vendor to get it done, or you need to have your within your scope or your in-house application who can do it for that. Now, to do that, you get an onboarded a vendor and get it completed. That is one of the way you can do it. Another way of people nowadays doing it is that they encrypt the data. They keep the encryption key out of their reach, so that the data is safe and secure and it is not compromised at any point of time. So these are the few things to do at the very beginning stage while thinking about data encryption at the very early stage of your organization and implementing something like that.
All right. Well, thank you, Tanin, for sharing those insights. On that note, I would like to come to you, Anand. There has been a rise of remote work, and absolutely there has been, because of that, consequently, the rise of cloud infrastructure. Right. So, how can organizations ensure consistent security policies and controls are maintained across multiple environments?
See, so let me try and answer it in three parts. One, there is after COVID, there is a irreversible trend of working from home and the remote work, right? And that's why the cloud infrastructure has gone up. And now with that, there is also a proliferation of Gen I in everything that we are doing, right? Just to give you a couple of stats, it took almost 17 years for smartphone to reach 100 million users. And even when we look at our internet, it took about 7.5 years to reach 100 million. But Chat GPT, it took just about 2 months to cross the 100 million mark. So these are some of the irreversible trends that are there today, right? But when you look at some of these are very data heavy. They thrive on data, right? And on the other side, when you look at, there are regulations that are getting passed for data regulation almost in every country. India released the DPDP Act last year, right? So it's a constant, you can say, struggle as well as challenge for every organization to make sure that they encourage the work from home or the remote work that you called out, while also making sure that their data security and data privacy laws are in place. And this is where we are looking at one clear scenario that's coming out is a holistic approach towards data security, right? You can't have a situation where you're closing all the doors of the house, but your windows are open. So it's a complete holistic strategy that they are looking at. And that's where some of our integrated AI first approach kind of products that are coming to fore, which are making sure that CISOs and the organizations are looking at in a very holistic way.
All right, you are talking about AI, and we all have been talking so much about AI. There are a lot of terms related to AI that are now being thrown at randomly. But when it comes to the adoption of AI, how are we securing that adoption? How are we doing that?
Oh, absolutely. That's glad you asked this question. And we are living in a very interesting world. On one side, you have, as I mentioned, Gen AI that is there. And then Gen AI also thrives on data. On the other side, there are regulatory restrictions that are there. Every organization today, it's going through a bit of a challenge where first they want to have a complete visibility of their data. And we did an analysis. Only about 43% of the organization today are claiming that they have some sort of visibility, not 100% visibility, but some sort of visibility on how are they procuring data, to how are they using this data, and how are they even eliminating or purging that data, right? And the second one is then how do you control the use of data? So we see that more and more there is a risk of data sharing, data leak within the organization, sometimes voluntary, sometimes involuntary, right? And also non-compliant usage of the data itself. So it's a constant battle. I think we are in a transition right now. But what we are seeing is organizations are at least becoming aware, as well as they are looking for solutions which can help them to kind of secure their data estate through a comprehensive security and compliance and privacy policies.
All right, that was about Gen AI, but I also want to talk about data breaches, and I'll come to you, Pushkal, for that. Data breaches often occur with third-party vendors or partners, right? So how are you sort of addressing the risks posed by supply chains and external partners? How can organizations do that?
No, that's again a very good question, Himanshi. Every organization depends on third parties. You cannot, do everything on your own, and that dependency is vital for a business. Now, there are a lot of supply chain attacks we have been seeing. Not every third party is built in the same capacity. Now the issue there is that how do we go about and try to identify and help our partner fix those problems? The limitation with the industry CISOs is that they're principally working for an organization that they are hired for, but then you have the other whole supply chain and the vendors on the other side of the spectrum. So there is a method to it, and that method is that once you try to onboard a vendor, then you make sure that you have the entire vendor risk management or a third party risk management program created. So you look at it supply chain from really the inception to its conception and to its conclusion. So inception, before onboarding it, you got to have a certain program in mind. How am I going to assess the cyber or data specific issues that this partner is bringing onto my environment, and really try to fix that before it becomes your problem. And when that happens, you onboard the partner, and then over the course of time, some of the partners are strategic. They are going to be with you for time and time and time in the future. So you have to also have a program that consistently looks at the cyber posture of that long-term partners on a periodic basis. And at the end, when there is a sign-off happening, there has to be some model, some controls in place that actually looks at it while we are exiting it. Let's make sure that you get rid of all the data that you have had, and contracts actually also adds a lot of value here. The kind of the clauses we put in contracts and the kind of obligations we put in, that helps. Good part is that now we have a lot of tools and technologies that you can leverage to sort of see the attack surface of your critical vendors also. So that's actually a good advancement. So it's a whole lot. It's just not a one time do it and forget about it. It's really a consistent practice that needs to happen.
Yeah, and very wide spectrum of things when it comes to this space. And for the same question, I would like to come to you, Tanin. If you can tell us, what are those strategies where organizations can protect their data even outside their organizational boundaries?
So, fair point what Pushkal was referring to. Maybe I'll add a couple of things onto it. Probably that would answer the questions. So, what exactly the organization needs to do is need to have a very stringent and strong SCC, what we call as standard contractual clauses, along with your technical and organizational measures of the vendors that you have to assess before you onboard them. So you're giving them access to your data. So you need to understand that their problem is your problem. Your problem is not their problem. Something like that. So being a data fiduciary in India, the controller or the issues or any fines lies with you. The data protection board will come and catch hold of you if there is a data breach out there. So being a processor would be liable for in India, but under DPDP you are liable. So to make sure that you are complying with all the regulations and making sure your data which has been shared across to your vendors are safe and it's not compromised, a thorough assessment is what come across. You need to do a data protection impact assessment. What happens if my data goes uncompromised from their end? What kind of technical measures that they have been picked across? So we have seen across nowadays that even while doing the standard contractual clauses with your vendors, we got to ask the vendors, do you really have an insurance with you guys? For example, if my data got breached from your end, then are you liable to pay us fine? So in that case, we as a data controller, while processing the data via the processor, we have to make sure that some kind of controls is put across.
All right, thank you for those insights. And as digital transformation continues to accelerate, so does compliance regulations. And I want to touch upon that topic because it's a really important topic. And for that, I would like to come to you, Anand. When it comes to compliance regulations, how do you sort of maintain the balance between these compliance and global data protection standards while also focusing on innovation?
Right. No, I think this is a great question and something that we come across every single day. See, today organizations are also struggling with almost 250 kind of, you can say, compliance updates or regulatory requirements that they have to meet every single day, right? Now, that's like if you have to run a business, you have to make sure that you comply. But your real business, in most of the cases for organization, is something else, and they have to also maintain a level of productivity for their employees, right? And this is where one of the things that we are kind of seeing more like a real life example is that today I spoke about GenAI in the previous question, right? GenAI is a irreversible kind of a trend, and Microsoft today has M365 Copilot, which is one of the most loved and used productivity suite, GenAI based productivity suite, right? But as customers are kind of adopting that, right, they also need to balance between how do they make sure that they have visibility of the data. They also have a control over how the data gets used in the entire organization. Plus, how do you comply with the requirements of DPDP and GDPR, etc. Right, and this is where we are seeing that a lot of customers who started using the M365 Copilot, they are coming back to us asking for a holistic solution, which is where our Microsoft Purview comes into picture, which is a end-to-end solution that not just secures but also helps in governance of the data through the entire data lifecycle management. So today, the data can reside in on-premise environment. It can be on a private cloud. It can be on a SaaS kind of applications, right? So it gives you a complete one visibility of the data. And as we say, you can only control something when you see it. So it first gives you that visibility, right? And then it also cuts across your unstructured and structured kind of a data. So it's a holistic solution that customers have started deploying as part of not just the M365 Copilot, but if they are using any Gen AI kind of a tool, right? Just to make sure that they end up complying with the laws of the land as well.
All right, but as a technology vendor, when it comes to Gen AI, what are those future trends that you're predicting, or you are seeing that they might come in the next decade or so?
See, what we are seeing, decade is a long period. I mean,
Yeah, and Gen AI is evolving
it's
rapidly
like
every day.
The way it is evolving, nobody would have imagined 2 years ago or maybe 18 months ago that this is the kind of change that we are looking at. But I think Gen AI, today we are talking about it, but it will become a non-spoken kind of a, you can say, technology where you take your mobile, you take your, you can say, productivity suite, you take anything. Gen AI will be just part of it, underlying kind of a feature, right? And that's where people will not even think of, today we are talking about Gen AI, but it will be available in every technology, every device that we use. And the way we see it is and as regulations also evolve over a period of time, what we are seeing is as a trend is that people will start looking at, you can say, holistically again, they will start looking at how do you have a visibility as well as control on the entire data estate is what we are looking at.
All right, thank you so much for those insights on Gen AI and much, much more. And as we are wrapping up this conversation, I would like to come to both of you on what do you see as the next major challenge when it comes to securing digital data estates. Maybe we'll start with you, Pushkal.
I mean, see, the next challenge is really directly related to the next technology that really coming in. So, there's something called Gen AI and AI for the businesses, and then there is something called security for AI. Really, I mean, you also got to be able to, protect that AI and AI models to be able to consistently ensure the value that they are delivering. So that's really, what is there for us in the future, ensuring that the AI models remain protected. That's the one part. And second part, which is also that we are seeing, coming up frequently, is the compliance obligations. I personally believe compliance is good, It is giving us directions, it's giving us the maturity models, how to really go about and handle the data with responsibility. So I don't see that as a challenge, but I do see that that's an obligation that organizations supposed to, work and be compliant with it. It really helping us in the right direction. That's the second part. Third part is really how technologies are actually integrate in terms of communicating with each other and having a thorough observability. Because if you don't have a line of sight, you definitely don't have a way to protect it. So line of sight is another challenge that needs to be fixed for security professionals to be able to address and solve the problems of cybersecurity. So coming back to my first point, which is I said security for AI, we've been talking about the values that AI brings, and it's all true. But I think we also have to start thinking about how to be responsible around creating the AI model and at the same time protecting the AI model so that there is no data poisoning, there is no wrong prompts creating a huge amount of problems in the data set and also the outcomes of the data set. So somewhere, over the period of time, you would also see that the boundaries between security, privacy, ethics, and
They're all
trust
blurred.
engineering is really
Blurring
coming to
day
a
by
point
day,
where you got to be able to look at the thing more holistically. So to my opinion, these are some of the pertinent points.
All right. Same question to you, Tanin. What is that next big challenge you see in the area of securing digital data estate, and how can organizations be really prepared for that?
So yes, to add to it, what exactly Gen AI is the talk of the town. AI is the talk of the town, and what is the ingredients for AI system? It's data. Now, how do we push data? What kind of data we are pushing? Do we have personal data? What kind of privacy we are building it in our AI tool to make sure that our individual data is not being biased, coming at the biased decisions are coming out of from the AI tool. So AI is going to be the talk of the town, and how we as an organization picking up how we are making sure that we are using an responsible AI, not just any AI, which is not biased to any decision, is something we'll come across. And second talk about second thing that is a major challenge for every organization is the weakest link that we have on our organization, which is our people. We got to make sure how do we train them, how to
course.
understand what is privacy. Now, as in India, we need to educate and share awareness that privacy is a fundamental right. And having said that, we got to train them, we got to make awareness and make it from the very basic ones who are just graduated from the colleges and they do not understand what is privacy, to help them understand what needs to be done, what needs not need to be done, how they can make sure that their data cannot be compromised, how they can make sure that the security of the data is one of the major things that should be taken care. So these are the things that will come across, and driving privacy in an organization, or if you think privacy on in India level, country level. So awareness is something which has to be driven from the basic, and every organization should look for some initiative to drive privacy to every corner of the department.
So, Himanshi, I just want to add to what Pushkar and Tanin said. I mean, if I have to summarize, what we are seeing is every organization today are kind of looking at three essential ingredients or things. How do they secure themselves? How do they stay compliant and manage the privacy part of it? And how do they kind of also lower their total cost of ownership? Because that is also something that is critical in the age of Gen AI. This is what every customer that we are talking to is asking us to help in all these three areas.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for these insights. We talked about end-to-end data security, protecting digital data estate. We talked about Gen AI a lot. Of course, it's AI for security and security for AI. Right, on that note, thank you so much for joining us today. And I really like your point where you said that we need to train our employees also. They need to know that privacy is not a luxury, it's your right. And thank you so much for that conversation. On that note, stay tuned, viewers, for more such videos only at ET Studios as we come to you from ETCISO Annual Conclave 2024 from Vizag. Stay tuned and let's get back for another episode.